And welcome back, everybody, to the first strike North American qualifiers, brought to you by Nerd Street Gamers. We brought you some games from both groups C and D earlier, but this is crunch time once again. This is the game that matters. There is something on the line now for the Slimy BOOGERMEN and BBG. Joining me for this game, as you can see on your screens now, are your casters, Esports Doug and Simo. Guys, it's great to have you back tonight. Have you managed to catch up on any of the action today, Doug?
Yes, in fact, Simo and I may or may not have been nerding out in a call for the last too many hours, watching all of the matches and kind of talking about what was going down. So I feel very comfortable in saying this on Simo's behalf. We are both very excited for what's about to go down.
Well, this is the big one, and we had Avril on earlier who called this not, the group of death, but the group of life, because anyone has the potential to come a second place. But unfortunately, one of the teams between Slimy BOOGERMEN and BBG, one of them have to go. We can't have both of them. And Simo, I guess I'll come to you for this one. What are we expecting from this matchup? Who do you think will come out on top?
Well, first, I just want to say that I'm really happy that our producer, Griffin, put me above Doug this time around. Yesterday, I was below Doug. This time, I'm a notch above. So thank you to our producer, Griffin, for doing that. Really appreciate that. But for the matchup at hand, I like the call there for the group of life. But now that we've seen both matchups, it's a little bit different, I think, in the bigger picture, because TSM, very convincing performance, that we understand. But Renegades and Slimy BOOGERMEN, Renegades, while a closer match, it still kind of felt like in the bigger picture they were in control for most of the series. And then now it boils down to BBG versus the Slimy BOOGERMEN. And I think it really just all is going to boil down to who wants it more. And in watching the matchup of TSM against BBG, it was so interesting to see Bjor and Rob Wiz just pop off in the moments that the team needed. Yeah, it wasn't a win, but I think that they are hungry and they do not want to be eliminated by an orgless team called the Slimy BOOGERMEN. That would go down in history as the most nerve-wracking thing to ever happen to you. I don't think BBG would want that stain on their legacy.
Well, it is a rematch, It is a rematch of last week's. We mentioned this a bit earlier of the Open qualifiers. And that time, they did get slightly humiliated. It did go to a third map. But it was the Slimy BOOGERMEN that came out on top, Doug. Do you think that's going to happen again tonight?
That's so tough to say because, as you mentioned, the Boogies came out on top, but all of the maps were close, right? 13-11 on Ascent, 13-11 on Bind, and then lastly 13-9 on Split. So you really, when you think about Valorant and the way it currently plays, you can easily have a 2 to 3 round swing, and that's probably on the conservative side. So I think this matchup is going to be really close. I think, based off of how things looked in the prior matches, as Simo mentioned, my boy Bjor was popping off. He was a madman. So I imagine him to continue to play. I expect him to continue to play at that level time and time again, but it's just tough, man. The Slimy Boogies, they have nothing to lose, right? Like, they're a bunch of names that don't have an org behind them, right? They can just play a little bit more loose, and yeah, they're trying to do it, but at this point, everybody knows who they are. They've grabbed the attention of the Valorant community, and this is a big step for them to continue to establish themselves as an org as a roster, that should be signed by somebody.
Just quickly before we look into the maps, I wanted to extend on that topic because there are only 2 teams in this close qualifiers who don't have an org, who aren't backed up by an org. And of course, the Slimy BOOGERMEN are one of them. And what does this say, I guess, about the scene right now, if in theory, and if they manage to beat BBG tonight and progress and then get to that final spot and even make it perhaps the main event in December? What does that say for the North American scene in general, Simo?
Well, honestly, that anybody could come in and take what's theirs. I'm a Moon Raccooner over here, big fan of the Moon Raccoons. And this team is a bunch of friends. Of course, Sean did get picked up by Gen G, but prior to that, it's just a group of friends who like playing the game Valorant. Like, it doesn't get any better than that. And the fact that they can come in and have this interesting story of toppling some of the greatest teams in Tier 2 and to some extent Tier 1 Valorant, you can definitely expect them to come back in the next Open qualifier. But that's like the perfect representation of just, let's get together, let's have some fun, let's enjoy ourselves, and let's see how far we can push it. In other cases, you have players coming in from CSGO, and they really just want another shot at a career in an FPS tag shooter. But in other cases, you just have a bunch of friends that like playing the game and want to enjoy themselves. And the fact that they can turn that into a potential career is mind-blowing. But yeah, all it says is that anybody can beat anybody underneath the top 4. Anyone else that's underneath the top 4, anybody can beat anybody.
And speaking of having fun, this is the fun part, which is map picks. They are in, I believe, as you can see on your screen shortly. Slimy banned Bind, which is interesting because they just played Bind and it didn't go too well for them. But of course, you know, BBG came in with that Ascent pick. Again, not something that went particularly well for the Slimy Boogermen. Now we have the maps picks in, you guys. Does it change anything for you? Do you think it favors one team over the other?
I'm very confused. So, the Slimy Boogermen going into that last map up against Renegades, or that last series, they went into that 4-0 on Bind. They are very good on Bind. They played, they beat Built by Gamers on this map 13-11 the last time they played. So, that's a very surprising ban for me. And it, you know, maybe it just felt off today. Maybe there's just something about it that's like, something feels not comfortable about it. I don't know what it is, but that's the first impression. I'm like, what the heck? Why would you ban that? Furthermore, BBG's just 1-1 on it. They don't have a ton of reps. They haven't shown extreme proficiency on it necessarily, so that's just really surprising to me.
What do you think, Simo? Anything to add there?
No, I think I echo the same sentiment. It's a little strange to ban Bind when you have the option to banning Ascent, which is where we've even seen today Built by Gamers. We're inching ever so close to toppling TSM on a map that they are comfortable with. Of course, TSM is just TSM, and Wardell tweeted it was rifle practice, but it's still Built by Gamers trying their best and pushing the limit of a tier 1 organization in Valorant. But I think it does seem a little strange to ban away your pocket ace, right? The card that you are most comfortable with playing in an elimination match. That is where it's the strangest. This is where it's do or die, like you said earlier, Yinsu. If you don't win here, you got to come back and try again for the UMG Open, and that is not something that you want to do. If you can seize the day now, Carpe Diem, whatever, you're going to want to do that, and both teams are going to take whatever advantages they can. If you can take a map advantage, then why wouldn't you do that? I don't understand.
I mean, maybe it is like what you said, Doug, that they don't feel 100% on it. It is an odd thing to do. But having said that, you know, we have seen stranger things, and maybe they are saving a lot for this chance, because we had some speculations that team had been saving their best strats or saving some pocket picks for when it really matters. And as you said, Simo, this is where it really matters. And like I said before, you know, this is meant to be the group of life, but this is now 2 teams are fighting for their life and fighting for a chance to make it to the playoffs close qualifiers. Anyway, it's time for our first map. Take it away, guys.
Thank you, dear Insu. Yes, as we talked about, we've got the maps. We know how things are going to go down. We know that we're going to be going to Ascent first. Once we can get past the confusing fact of Bind being banned, the next thing we look at is Ascent. Okay, let's see how these teams perform on Ascent. BBG going into that series, or going into their last series against TSM, went into that at 3-0. Pretty dang good on Ascent. Furthermore, as you mentioned, Simo, they took TSM almost the distance. They dropped that one 13-10, but they showed that they're really good on the map. On the other side, you've got the Slimy Boogermen who come in at 2-2. So initial thoughts on that map, that matchup, and kind of the records for both of those squads?
Listen, it just boils down to running it back to why would you ban Bind? You know, looking at some of the other, like, they lost to Cloud9 earlier in the Open, 13-1 on Ascent. Like, that is, you're going up against BBG. Yeah, they're not the Cloud9 scale, but they're a team that's proficient, and if it shows that you can't even tango with the top 4 squadron, this first map is going to hurt. And then ultimately it boils down to, can you take this series the distance? Can you do that here as the Slimy Boogermen? Yes, we've been very impressed with their run, but a run is a run. You got to make it further than that. If you can make it to the playoffs, what a statement it would be. You knocked out organizations that have paid salaries for players, and you've made it to top 8. And to get there, you're going to ban your most comfortable map? That's a come on, bro, if I've ever seen one. That is not the way that you want to be tangoing here up against BBG in an elimination match.
But nonetheless, here's where we are. We're on the map. We're going to be loading into this 10 seconds away from kicking off. Again, this elimination match, there is no second chance this time around. There is no loser's bracket. There is nothing else to go on, at least during this qualifier. The time is now for both of these squads. They both got 2-0'd, unfortunately, by TSM and Renegades, and now they're going to have to try to get through each other. As we mentioned, this is a rematch between these two squads, and it was the Slimy Boogermen who were able to emerge victorious the last time they met. Can they replicate that success, at least early on, here on Ascent?
And we also have to ask a couple of questions in terms of the Asian selection. We've got a Phoenix and a Reyna. Now, I understand that the need for the double duelist. It's a fine combo. But the Phoenix, as opposed to the Jet, it's something that potentially the Boogermen can play. Instinct plays pretty much every single duelist under the sun. But we're going to have to take a pause on that conversation as the action is about to ensue here on the B site. Dev will be taken down. He was top fragging in that previous match, up against the previous series, up against the Renegades, and he is already down for the count. Boogerman down to 2 final players, going to retake in a 2v4. It's not looking so hot.
No, it's a difficult spot, to say the least, and unfortunately for the Boogermen there, all of BBG is set up in their post plants. Well, she's the last one standing, who had a couple of heroics when we saw them last, but unfortunately not going to be the case here. Built by Gamers, starting off the map strong. It wasn't always pretty, but I was very impressed with how they got onto site. They established their post plants. They had the numbers advantage. That looked good out of BBG early on.
Looking at the match up against TSM, because it is a good litmus test to how BBG can do in this match ahead. We'll be paying attention to Bjor's performance, and see if he can replicate the same prowess he did up against TSM. But most importantly, Rob Wiz, 11 double kills in the 2-0 match up against TSM. So he is finding multiple opportunities to be a nuisance for the opposition. Wardell only had 8, and that was the top number for TSM in terms of double kills in their matchup. So Rob Wiz will have to pay attention. If he's alive, he can find great success in dwindling the odds and give BBG a bigger opportunity. But there's a shock dart kill that occurs on the area right into B main. Dev swings, shock dart goes down, finds a frag. Now it's down to the 4v4 push onto this A site.
Take flight. It looks like BBG through Cat, through Tree. They're going to send in the drone critical. They're going to spot one. Know where some of the resources of the Boogermen are, but they're just going to run right at him, Simo. They've got the gun advantage. We feel comfortable taking these fights, and somehow, well, she doesn't get that kill.
How do you survive that? Anderson's, of course, going to come in from behind. He hears that action. Spike is going down, and now there's a weapon upgrade here for Anderson. We'll see now Will get into a little bit of a different position, but I think Anderson heard that. He heard the jump from a mile away. It's the 3v3, and unfortunately Anderson's going to feel that one in the morning. Welchie now trying to use the turret as cover to open up an entryway onto the site. It's all down to Dev with the Sheriff in a 1v3. They spot him out. They know he's on the catwalk. Turret will come up and see him when he swings. Audio cue is perfect for Critical to look up a 4K on the round for Critical, which of course at one point or another you and I are no stranger to his performances on Mamba Mode Gaming. But a great start here for Built by Gamers, moving into the first gun round for Boogermen.
Yeah, it was a strong start, and as we know, like you mentioned, Critical dude can be cracked out of his mind at any point in time, so not super surprising to see a strong start out of him at 5-0. The interesting thing here is because BBG has been able to preserve life so much, they're going to be going into this round with a bunch of Stingers and Spectres to boot. Yeah, they're going to have full armor, but they're going to be facing full rifle artillery from the side of the Boogerman. If BBG can pull this round off, the financial implications are enormous. But no, it looks like BBG just getting picked apart. They don't have the guns. Instinct picks them apart with 2. There was all sorts of action from the Slimy Boogerman. BBG just down to 1 in a 1v4. Has the spike at least, but this is not the situation you want to be in.
This honestly feels like a small throwaway around here from BBG. When you 5-stack push from B main and you only smoke the backside, like, what are you expecting? And considering your only flash is Omen, there is a Leer, but it is quite easy to deal with in comparison to like a flashpoint per se or a curveball. Your most reliable flash, the Paranoia. I don't exactly know in what fashion it was used because I was paying attention to the rush onto the site, but it just felt like BBG were like, okay, we're like, this isn't going to be a great round regardless. Let's just see what we can do. At least they find a frag. At least they can take a Phantom out of the hands and hurt that economy. I think that's what Foe is looking for here as well. Can I find another pick with the Stinger? Oh, did he know that he's there? Oh,
yeah,
you know now.
Spotted him a minute ago. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
They were sitting on him for a while, but a nice 3K from Instinct. And I think you're right, Simo. It did feel a bit like a throwaway round. The interesting thing is, if you know going into that, it was a roll of the die. Is what it was, right? Like, listen, we know we don't have the gun advantage. Let's just kind of run at him and see if we can get a few picks. And if we win the round, great. If we lose it, we're not really losing much financially. We're still going to have guns to go into the next round. So a bit of an interesting approach, but I think a conservative and ultimately a wise one, nonetheless, from BBG. And that was an important round for the Boogermen to win. We talked about the financial implications of that. They needed that round.
For BBG, this is their return gun round. A couple of shots actually through the smoke, but the battle ensues in the courtyard as unfortunately the Boogermen cannot stand the power of BBG. And that's Rob Wiz with the Spectre. Once again, the multi-kill in his hands. They will funnel around and make sure they clear a lot of the back of that A site. And of course, for Boogermen, Dev not willing to take the fight to BBG. It's a 1v5. Even if you can take down a member or two, it's not worth losing the Vandal in this scenario. Considering we look at his credits, he's at 100. He likely bought for somebody, probably Welshi, moving into that round. And yeah, I'd want to save the Vandal if I could.
Yeah, there's just not a ton to work with. And I'm a bit surprised that BBG is not hunting him out a little bit more aggressively. I think oftentimes when we've seen teams when in a position like this, they all flood off the site, and they do so almost immediately after the spike goes down because they want to try to get that kill. And it's a bigger game at that point than just getting the round win and potentially getting a kill. You're looking to hurt an economy, right? If the more weapons that you can take away, and you highlighted it, Timo, Dev was just down to 100 credits. If they can take that rifle out of his hands, it's a brutal situation for him there. Ultimately, he gets the kill onto the lurking member of BBG. Built by Gamers are still able to get the round win. However, now the interesting thing for the Boogermen, they don't have a ton in their pockets, right? You saw a bit of light armor and rifles across the board, but light armor nonetheless, that's not an ideal situation for the slimy Boogermen.
Yeah, and the BBG are just starting to implode, and considering that was the round loss, the loss bonus has been reset. It's really rough economically here for the Boogermen. And yeah, you lose the pistol. Yeah, you win the gun round. We get those conversions. We understand that. But the economy, this is an important round for the Boogermen to win. They were hoping that that running back was able to stop or find some information or able to push them out of position there. But the clone's gone. Nobody gets injured. Armor's still up. And the Boogermen have to go back to the drawing board on how are they going to defend this upcoming push in the mid-round.
All right, Built by Gamers. They got pushed on a little bit over on A. And as you mentioned, they withstood the aggression of the run it back. And now they're slowly starting to rotate their way over. Yor establishing some presence across the middle of the map. Yor was, as we mentioned, an absolute madman in the previous series, looking to keep that performance up, but Built by Gamers have just snuck out of the site. I don't know that anyone knows. Now Dev knows that's going to be a call for the resources to rotate over, but Bjor is able to take care of Welshi. Intox still on the back site, trying to fend off the onslaught. That is BBG, and Anderson is joining the party as well. BBG has just gotten picked apart. They're just down to 2 members left. Will, however, is going to swing. Drop things into a 3v2. It's not out of the realms of possible. Get away!
Oh my god! Built by Gamers! What? Like, okay, think about that. Will's in the perfect spot, hiding in the boathouse. He finds the frag. He leers the members on the B site out of position, and then he dismisses to safety where his teammate has already cleared the back of spawn, and he gets the frag through the fruit market. BBG. What a masterful play. Now the spike is down. Here's the retake for the Boogermen. Can they fight this big brain BBG?
Dev using the drone to clear some space. Spots one, did not spot the other member of Built by Gamers as they continue to hunker down. We'll see if this Reynalier is as effective. They think they realize that they know that at least one is in generator, probably assuming the other one's over, under, hell, and it does not matter. Built by Gamer pick them apart after what you mentioned, a galaxy brain play to get out of B and plant it A.
That was, man, am I watching Valorant or am I watching, you know, one of the best movies of all time, Saving Private Ryan? Like, what is happening here? Like, they managed to get Will out of there. Saving Private Will is exactly what that was called. That was so well done. I know that Will was definitely feeling the pain. Like, all of his teammates were starting to die. They were losing the gunfights, entering onto the B site. And to be fair, Foe was the insurance policy. I was looking and paying. I was like, why is he over there? They were playing it like it was bind. You know how you have a lurker in showers and the team pushes B and he can't. I was like, is that what you're doing? No, he was clearing the site to prepare for that long-term play. But now let's move on to the next round. It's the eco here for BOOGERMEN. They're looking for the A side here for BBG, but BOOGERMEN are feeling feisty. Considering they've got, you know, lack of weaponry, they're going to go guns blazing because they can afford to lose these sheriffs.
Yeah, interesting to see the Hunter's Fury already use BBG again, hitting onto that A site. They do not go through tree, and they manage to get onto the site nonetheless. Robwiz goes up, he's able to get 1 and 2. Tally up another one, looking for the third, not able to land the shot, but the damage was done, and the kill was traded out. BBG gets the spike down.
And Robwiz is a special character. He is a
bad man,
a scary person to deal with. And I would want no one else other than him to be on the jet, have the ability to escape in case things get really crazy there. In that instance, he finds the double, pushes for the third, but I don't think he thought he could win that third gunfight. Otherwise, he would have tailwinded out of there. But nevertheless, BBG now up by 4. This is a defender-sided map, so BOOGERMEN really need to capitalize on the remaining rounds, but we still have to see what they're capable of on the attack here for Ascent. I don't, if I'm gonna just double back here really quick, I don't actually recall if Ascent was played against the Renegades. It was the first map, and the SLIMY BOOGERMEN had a little bit of a better time on the attack, so maybe we can expect a better performance moving into the second half, but at the moment it's the BBG show.
Once again, an early Hunter's Fury, guns across the board. This is also the second time that it looks like he doesn't have full armor. That may be a bug. We'll keep an eye on that on the scoreboard, but nonetheless, it's going to be full rifles across the board. BOOGERMEN has already lost 1, and BBG are pushing the matter up the middle of the map. You hear that Killjoy Ultimate has been used over on B side, and it's actually going to be used in conjunction to trade back, as both teams are trying to lock one of each other down, but they're all committing to the site anyway. This is going to be an absolute bloodbath, regardless of the outcome. Will and Foe are able to get 2. One of the Killjoy ults doesn't grab anyone, and the other one's picked apart before it even gets a chance. BBG in full control of the B site.
Yeah, they were not afraid to push in. They felt the superior power of their own ability. They find the picks that they need and get onto the site. It was a beautiful Venn diagram though on the site. Both lockdowns, you know, showing us one side and of course in the middle both. But BBG do come out on top. This was a gun round for BOOGERMEN. This is an important gun round for them because of course the economy is not in the greatest position. But this swing here from Intox, he might be able to find some success. He's trying to get support. Anderson's actually going to take out 2, and now it's down to the 2v3. They're at least making it expensive for BBG. Not maybe willing to push back onto the site because the spike's already been ticking for quite some time. But if they can take weapons out of the hands of BBG, that gives them more opportunities in the remaining of this half to do some more damage.
Yeah, that's a I don't want to call it a win, but it's the best possible outcome given the circumstances. Oh, Anderson got tagged up, managed to stay alive. All right, Built by Gamers has a big lead early on, up 5 rounds. The other thing worth noting is given the history of both of these squads on this map, they're both better on the defensive side. So it's not even, you know, we can have conversations around how the map leans across the board, but BOOGERMEN are better on defense than they are on attack. Same goes for Built by Gamers, but Built by Gamers have been pushing the slimy BOOGERMEN around here. Once again, it looks like they're going to have a hard and heavy hit over onto that A site. Robwiz takes the blades from out. He dashes in, goes up, not able to take anyone out, but Will is going to follow in suit. Is far more successful as he gets an opening frag onto Anderson, and they are on the site.
Yeah, Intox is in a tough spot as well. Empress popped. He was looking for that frag onto Will. Will's going to stay down in heaven while the rest of the team's going to funnel in and provide that support. If they decide to push in, guess who's there? It's Will. You'll be able to survive at least temporarily. If they spray through the top of the ceiling, he may fall, but the Blaze Wall is going to be put in a little bit of an awkward spot there for Will. The Lear's going to help the push in. They've already made their way up onto the site. They're starting to drop down. Here's where the battle begins. It's Intox. He doesn't have the Empress anymore, but he does have the Dismiss. It's unfortunately all down to Dev. And he cannot find another frag to make it at least a little bit more competitive here. BBG survive with 4, and they're up by 6.
Yeah, that 4-man heaven retake seldom goes well on the A side, and we saw exactly why there, right? Like, they were able to provide fire from a couple of different places, even with the Empress in tow. It just wasn't enough. So Built by Gamers, once again, they get onto the site, they assume their post-plant positions, and they just look really comfortable on this side of the map. They have a big lead to work for it as well, and for the Boogermen, this is a very important round. They've got guns here, but they're broke.
At least it's looking good so far. Welshi and Instinct holding down this B site. Or rather, Welshi's going to find a pick across the catwalk courtyard. But BBG have managed to get the spike down. And now we're just waiting for the Boogermen to retake the site. It's the 2v4, but it's Foe and Rob Wiz. And Rob Wiz doesn't like to wait. So he hops onto the ledge, and now as they're starting to push it, they know exactly where they're coming from, but the shock dart's going to hurt Foe. Now they push in. It's all down to Foe as Rob Wiz was taken out by a shock dart. I'd imagine that may have been the second one, or that first one. That might have just been perfectly timed. Right place, right time. But for the Boogermen, they win their second round of the half. To be honest, the round that they desperately needed to win to make that second half a little bit more competitive.
Yeah, and it was just a really good use of utility, right? You mentioned the shock darts. The Rainalier was in play there as well, just pushing off the members of BBG that were trying to hold down the site. Also knowing that the Boogermen had the numbers advantage certainly played a factor as well. And once you get into that 4v1, at that point, it's just blood in the water. They can flood onto the site. They can afford to lose a 1v1 if need be, as long as it's going to be traded out. So once Slimy Boogermen got that first pick, it was at that point, it was a done round. They were able to get in, get what they wanted, and get, as you mentioned, a very important round on the board. They still have money, still have guns, but they still are down 5 rounds. Built by Gamers have shown that they're very comfortable hitting a hot and heavy up A. This time it's a bit slower, but it looks like that's exactly where they want to go again.
Look at all that utility just being cleared out by BBG. All of that Killjoy utility is now gone. They'll match the Paranoias, and that's going to bode well for both sides. At least they'll trade. But they still feel like the tree room has been cleared out. Anderson's just going to try to hold on. He cannot hold down long enough. BBG will get the spike down, and now Boogermen are forced into, once again, this infamous heaven retake.
Yeah, but this time they're going to have to run it back to work with as well. The problem is the Empress is going to be used in exchange. The shock dart not nearly as successful this time around, but the fire from Instinct is. And he had the classic to boot, able to take care of things. The 3v3, you hear the Hunter Fury has been used now to try to clear off the site from Built by Gamers. And it's not the bow and arrow, it's actually the old trusty Phantom that's able to take care of things. Foe on a 3k looking for more, as there's one member left on the side of the Boogermen, and who else but Foe? 4k on the round. The round, once again, going in favor of BBG by similar manner. They get on the site, they get the spike down. The Boogermen cannot fight back.
Very interesting round there. Foe's in a spot that is not normally checked, because once you leave that smoke, you're thinking, okay, there's one behind generator, there's one behind the double box on the site, maybe there's one back at A main, maybe there's one in the tree room, and I gotta keep my attention at distance. Yeah, Foe was playing the close range. You pop out, he's got a perfect lineup, the perpendicular lineup right to your dome, and it really boded well for him. His positioning gave him a huge advantage up against the Boogermen, and now we're looking at, once again, another round, an eco round for the Boogermen. They're going to have a gun round to follow, but if they can have a Thrifty here, it's going to be a miracle. It's going to be a great miracle for the Boogermen, because BBG have shown us that, you know, gun rounds are not, the Boogermen are not having a great first half here up against BBG, and it's looking like this round may be quite the same.
So it's really interesting how the Boogermen on the eco have played this. They peeked down to B main, see if they spot anyone, and they did, and you immediately saw members start to rotate over, but some of them held fast, and that's because Built by Gamers were going to be here the entire time. With the guns, they're starting to flood onto the site. Will gets in on the action first, going to dismiss to safety. BBG should be able to pull this thing apart.
Yeah, but Instinct backside. They have managed to bring a Guardian into this round and a Marshall. I'm not sure where that came from. I'm assuming soft buys to even out the economy for the rest of the team. But now it's a 2v3. Things a little bit more doable. Unfortunately, Welshi is a little injured and worse for wear. So it's going to be a little bit more difficult. And just like that, he's going to feel that as the headache in the morning. Intox just trying to escape. He's got the Guardian in tow. There's going to be a Rob Wiz peeking here in just a sec. Vandal will send him down. Built by Gamers, up by 7. This last round here is going to be very important for the Boogermen. We talk a lot about being in this position, down 8 rounds, 10-2 in the beginning of the new half. PBG win a pistol, and already your entire existence in that second half is threatened.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost lost. And here's the thing for BBG. They've hit a fast through main. They've hit a fast through tree. They've hit both of those spots slowly. We just saw that they can do it on B as well. BBG have just flexed on the Boogermen on this half, and the truth of the matter is the Slimy Boogermen can't stop a nosebleed right now, much less any of the onslaught that's coming from Built by Gamers. So it's an important last round. The Boogermen, in an attempt to try to salvage things, to keep things respectable in the second half, they've really got to pull a rabbit out of their hat here to get to 9-3 at half.
So let's talk about this setup right now for the Boogermen. Yeah, they're sending their feelers out, but there's a stack here right outside the tree room. You've got Intox alongside Welshi, and they're trying to line up together. So if one person falls, unfortunately for Foe, he bites off a little bit too much, trying to lurk up the middle. We do have an opposite lurk there from Anderson. Now as they start to push through, they'll trade. There is the player, Welshi, that managed to escape. He was not there for the stack. But Anderson is coming in from behind. Rob Wiz loses the gun duel there. It's all down to one final player. Very well played there from the Boogermen. They were able to just hold on in the garden. And BBG maybe were looking for a little bit more. They got a little creative. They had a player looking up through the middle. Rob Wiz was already up in heaven. But they should have just got the spike down. They were trying to hunt for kills instead of playing for the objective.
Yeah, and I think one of the interesting things we didn't see a ton of out of Built by Gamers there on the attacking side was the little bait and switch, right? The little trickeration. You invest something over on A, either you don't like what you see, or it's planned this way from the beginning, and they rotate over to the other site. We'll take a look at a couple of the highlights that have brought us to this point. A big lead for Built by Gamers, but now it's the Slimy Boogermen who are going to be on the attack. We're going to have to make something happen. And the thing is, Simo, we talked about this some, the lead is just so big right now for Built by Gamers. You lose the pistol, you're not looking good.
(9-3), still a respectable half. You know, up against the Renegades, it was an 8-4, so unfortunately a little bit worse. But Slimy Boogermen were able to chain 4 in a row at the beginning of their attacking side. We'll see if they're going to be able to do the same here. BBG win this one. We have no idea what's going to happen to the Boogermen. Will they fall apart? Will they be able to weather the storm of the first 2 round conversions? We'll have to see. So far, it's slow moving for the Boogermen, but they already have a power player in place. Welshi working his way up through the middle, while BBG are still playing a little bit more passive towards the B site and a little bit more control towards the A site. So we'll likely see a retake towards this B site as Boogermen are headed over there to B main.
Yeah, but look at all that utility from Bjor. He's got that thing lit up like a Christmas tree. Yeah, they're going to smoke off, and they're going to paranoia. They're going to try to flood their way in, but the smoke and the paranoia are going to be traded in kind from Built by Gamers. They still haven't really gotten onto there yet. Now they're going to start funneling their way in, but Built by Gamers are there. Boogermen somehow slip in, but as you mentioned, it's going to be a fight for the retake. Built by Gamers are down 1. Welshi, oh, Welshi is in such a good spot to block that rotate. He read Rob looks like a book.
Yeah, unfortunately, Bjor could not... or sorry, actually, Welshi finds another one. Sorry, I was a little confused. There was 2 killjoys there. I was like, who's who? Which one's which? But nevertheless, BBG are falling apart here. It's all down to critical. He does find one here with the ghost, but it's not for long. I like the way, sorry, Welshi played that one. You called it out there, playing the power play by holding down the bench there. The rotation from BBG to go wrap around, maybe pull through from the fish market. It allowed Boogermen to not worry about the flank. In fact, Welshi took down 2 players in that instance. That would have been a completely different round if Welshi dies. So now that's going to give him at least a little bit of a saving grace. BBG, we've got to try again on that 3rd round. Well, I mean, if there's Thrifty's impactful, sure, but the Boogermen are going to have the weapon advantage.
Well, and I think the interesting thing is that plays out a couple of different ways. Welshi in that spot, right? If they rotate through, like we saw from Rob Wiz, easy money. If they push in through Market, he's in a position to where he can wrap around behind them, and it's like shooting fish in a barrel. So it's just a really, like you said, a really good position by Welshi there to fend off what was coming from Built by Gamers. BOOGERMEN were able to find some success on the opening pistol round of their attacking half, but they've still got a lot of ground to make up, down 5 rounds.
BBG, of course, have a large enough buffer, but that losing these 2 rounds isn't going to be the end of the world. But if the BOOGERMEN lose this one, the rounds to follow are going to hurt. So far, it's the 4 for 4. We're seeing 1 traded in the exact same spot, the B main. That Sheriff's definitely going to be impactful here for Foe. If he can find a second, it's definitely going to pay off. BOOGERMEN once again looking towards his B site. This time don't have a power player towards that mid side, so this could be Rob Wiz's opportunity to flank if you want, but now they're starting to funnel in. They're a little bit injured, or at least a couple of members are, and Foe's just trying to make sure that they've already all made it onto site, and so far that seems to be the case. So now they're stuck. Now BBG have the option of either fighting for this or fleeing for exit and see what they decide with.
Yep, they've got them cornered in. But as you said, they're just them apart. BBG had them in a corner, and BOOGERMEN were perfectly comfortable with that. They, again, as you mentioned, they managed to get the spike down. They got the kills that they needed as well, and they win that round. But now it's on BBG, right? They have the lead. They're going to have guns here. You want to establish some sort of separation at this moment. The reason I say that is because, as we've discussed, Ascent lends itself to absolute chaos, right? To moments where teams can rattle off obscene amounts of rounds at a time. So if you're BBG, you've got to be careful here.
Look at this aggressive peek. I think what he was doing there was they were anticipating a flash, so he had his back turned so that he could swing as they come in. That's a very interesting way to play that. Rob Wiz has bought enough time for Will to get in a cheeky position. He's just trying to be a distraction here. They haven't pushed in quite yet. They're going to try to clear him out with the hot hands, and now he's got to escape. Oh. Yeah, there's no escaping that. And Rob Wiz can't convert. He can't trade it out. This is such a great start here for the BOOGERMEN. Now BBG, they're going to have to pull their resources off from B site or just be careful. They have a lot of, unfortunately, not a lot of options considering they're down a member, and the BOOGERMEN are hunting.
And once again, keep an eye on the minimap. Welshi is playing on that pivot area. If they decide to rotate over, it's going to be Welshi who's going to get the first chance, and it looks like we're going to get a little bit of KJ on KJ as Bjork creeps his way forward. Elsewhere on the map, you hear the Hunter Fury has been used as they are still trying to get onto the site. The battle of the Killjoys goes in favor of Welshi, and Built by Gamers is just down to 1 member left. It's Foe, who we called before in a similar situation. It did not work last time. It's not going to work this time either. Slimy BOOGERMEN, a flawless round, a statement round for the BOOGERMEN.
Yeah, it all started, unfortunately, in that altercation towards A main. I understand what Will and Rob Wiz were trying to cook up. They were trying to cook up a very long-term play. Leave Will down there. If they're going to push up through A main, we'll have the flank ready, a power player in the wine cellar. But unfortunately, when you got hot hands, when you got a molly, you clear it out. And if you don't have that, if you have a raise, you don't really see a whole lot of raise on Ascent, but if you do, or if you have shock darts, you have utility to clear it out. So why wouldn't you? And so Will really just got caught there. Rob Wiz, I think, got injured as well on the retreat. And then they also did not allow for the flank. And I think what I'm paying attention to here is that BOOGERMEN are always prepared for the BBG flank. Whenever it is, wherever it is, you've got a point player playing that trusts the rest of the team to push onto the site. And if they, in a lot of these cases, we haven't really seen the need for a spike plant. Why? Because Built by Gamers are trying to fight for the retake before the spike's even down. They're just trying to not even let that spike go down. And while that is admirable, you're weakening your offense, or sorry, your defense. Oh, it's so big, but unfortunately, oh no, that's so unfortunate.
Swarm grenade out.
You hate to see that so much. But you mentioned it, Simo. The BOOGERMEN are constantly ready for that flank. If it's Rob Wiz, if it's Bjor, Welshi continues to be the anchor that's covering that backside, and BBG have been punished by it. A number of times already. You see the Boogermen are investing some resources to get onto B. Critical is out. The ult has been used as well.
30
It's going to
seconds
force
left.
BBG back. It's possible here for BBG, but they're down in numbers. They already have one member who's certainly worse for wear, and that's Will. This is a difficult situation for BBG.
I mean, Welchie wasn't ready for it. He was able to flick on over real quick, but still, nevertheless, it's down a 2 here for BBG. Sheriffs until the last time that we were in this position where BBG had them all cornered up, they set up a beautiful crossfire for the Boogermen. Yep. They had a player on that box looking up towards the ledge. Why? Because there's a player looking at the staircase here. If somebody pushed in, the player looking at the box was not going to be afraid. Well, in that case, they weren't a little prepared, but at least Buer is going to find one for the road. But Boogermen have such a great post-plant setup where they're not letting them really feel too comfortable because they've got all 4 stacked. They don't have a player playing in B main. They don't have a player that's pulled off the site to try to catch these lurks. In some cases, they do. But when they're committing to the B site, the Boogermen commit to the B site. They all huddle up there. They all stack up. And the crossfire hurts for BBG because when you check a 50, you're likely going to get shot from both angles, to be honest. And that's ultimately why it's a little bit difficult for BBG to get in. And also, at the end of the day, there might not be a lot of utility left from the round at hand, right? And in that case, it was down to 2 players. You have a Killjoy who's not really going to be using her utility. And, of course, Foe, who does have a little bit more utility, but the guns, of course, weren't very acceptable.
You saw there Rob Wiz has invested, spent big dollars, got himself an op to show for it. Not able to get the opening pick, but he did spot the turret. It looks like the Boogermen are looking to work their way onto A. Curveball's there, the flame wall's up there as well, but it's actually the operator from Rob Wiz that keep things at bay, at least for the time being, and if it's not that, it's the utility from Buer that's going to slow things down. The spike is not down yet, but members of BBG need to rotate, and they need to do so quickly. Buer with the major 2-piece elsewhere on the map. Well, she's not there because he's been waiting for the rotate, and that's going to give them up the site. Well, she's now the last one standing. BBG have taken over. He has no business going in there. This is the round that BBG needed.
Oh, Rob Wiz missing that shot. Well, she survives with everything. Has the armor, has the HP. He's not going to survive that, however, but for the Boogermen, and rather, sorry, for BBG, that was a round that they needed. They needed some momentum to swing back into their favor. But to be quite honest, this is the exact round that they lost against the Renegades here for the Boogermen on that attacking side. It was that 5th round that they lost. This time, we're within 3. BBG aren't too far ahead. Boogermen can brush that one off, the dirt off their shoulder. But Buer was really the hero of that round. Not really the greatest performance coming out from him in this match against TSM. He definitely lit up the scoreboard a little bit more. But he found a moment to give himself some confidence. He held down the A side and did not let the Boogermen plant. And they had wanted to check the left side because they had maybe anticipated, okay, that's actually pretty good. That's a good opening pick. But kudos to Buer for really holding down that site as we now move into the next round.
There's a point I want to make, but I'm afraid I'm not going to have the time. Yeah, Rob Wiz is able to light up the scoreboard or the kill feed, excuse me, again with another pick with the operator. Boogermen, in a rare circumstance where they don't have the numbers advantage, and look at the different positioning by Welshie. They knew to check that bench because he was there before, so they checked that 50, but no. Welshie playing mind games has moved elsewhere. Meanwhile, the spike in the hands of Anderson on the site, but in a precarious situation. Oh, I love that smoke. But the problem is, it's not just a turret you have to worry about. Oh my gosh, it's him as well. Rob Wiz goes in, he goes up. He's trying to get the shots with the classic, not able to get it, but it buys them enough time. Built by Gamers start to rotate over. Fall the last one standing further away, wins that big fight up against Welshie. That's going to give them all of the access on the site. The last one, they're picking apart. BBG inch closer and closer to a 1-map lead.
Yeah, that was another very important round for BBG to establish some dominance. Boogermen have had really their way with this half of the first 4 rounds, but now that the economy is starting to ever so slightly come back into the pockets of BBG, they're finding a little bit more success, and it's Rob Wiz on the op. I talked a little bit about how against TSM, he had the most multi-kills, I believe, out of anyone in the lobby for the entirety of the series, despite still losing to TSM. And Rob is with this op, especially on that last round, made it super painful for the Boogermen. And once again, Rob Wiz in that same position, playing aggressive. I love when teams do this, but they have to be a little bit careful because the Boogermen also are aware of stuff like this, aware of plays like this. But this time it seems like they're not.
Oh boy, like 2 ships passing in the night. As soon as BBG goes aggressive across mid, Boogermen just slide right by and make their way onto A.
Nice.
Fiora is able to get that rotating pick that we talked about, that anchor spot. Well, she gets taken out. Instinct does as well. The spike is still not down.
Yeah, they had all this time too. Okay, it's not Planet Generator. At least Rob Wiz doesn't know that, but now he might know that it's not Planet Generator. So he's been tagged out by the drone, but that Empress is looking to do some damage here for the Boogermen. If you can find a 1v1 scenario here or Intok, that's going to bode well. Anderson's going to help out at least. Now it's down to the 2v3. Rob Wiz is playing contact point from this one, but still Intox is alive. The Empress has been so important. And Anderson flanking from behind. The Boogermen answer back with the spike plant, with the Empress, and put themselves back within 3.
And you mentioned Anderson on the flank. That's what broke that open. That's what broke the site open. That's what gave them access onto the site, and that's what allowed them to pick BBG apart. Simo, they were set up really well, right? Like, they had the angles that they wanted. They had everything in front of them, but they just got sucker punched by Anderson. Very well played. Also, I just want to take a quick moment. Huge shout out to the observers. They have been spectacular this entire time, but cinematic shots like that, like, how can you... I just get so excited when I see that. That just makes me warm and fuzzy on the inside.
Yep, I totally feel that too. Got to shout out Sapphire and Mr. J Pistachio. Got to give credit where credit is due. And they are definitely bringing in the flames when it comes to the observing. So is Anderson this round, opening up on Rob Wiz, and we already know ourselves that is a crucial pick taken out. But Bo is also an important factor. Finds one here, hanging in the peep the shop. Unfortunately, he's going to be blinded by the cheese as the curveball comes through, opens wide, and now it's just critical, holding things down with Odin. But it's all down to Dev. And the show, wait, what? How does that happen? Where did the shock dart come from? Did he bounce it off the wall there? Into, that was one heck of a shock dart. And now we're at match point here for BBG. Not exactly where I thought we would be. I thought Boogermen really started to get rolling, but things are looking scary. They got to win 4 in a row. If they lose this one, well, if they lose this one, it's over. But if they win this one, but it's very expensive, the economy is not looking great. They won't be able to still full buy as effectively. So even if they win, but it's a very costly round, it's going to be tough. So they need to really have a phenomenal round where they dominate, build by gamers. And we've seen some rounds like that. It's just the past 2 have been brutal.
Yeah, I think you're right. BBG are at a point where, excuse me, the Boogermen are at a point here where they have they don't just have to win the round, but they have to do so in a specific fashion just to be able to remain competitive for the next one. And that's certainly not going to help their cause. Anderson sitting on the sideline for the rest of the round. The spike nowhere near any of the sites. You've got plenty of utility over on A. You've got plenty of personnel from BBG over on B. It does not look like Boogermen have much room to work with at all.
Boogermen slowing things down. Gonna be looking to clear out the tree room, but there's a nano swarm that's triggered. Instinct was looking to take that out. You saw that he was looking for it. But unfortunately, it's activated before he can even do anything about it. They're going to rotate off. They at least know that there's some presence towards the A side. Okay, we can account for Killjoy.
30 seconds left.
Lost a member towards B main, so there has to be at least somebody here. But like a turret, Critical is just sitting down there, waiting for the beeps, waiting for the cues, and mows down Welshi. This is already starting to fall apart. Foe's going to be looking for any potential flanks, but he leaves his position. No. And the recon bolt's going to really help out Intox finding that pick. Now a 4v2 as Critical just once again holding things down like a turret, mowing down anyone that comes in their path. It's all down to Intox. Unfortunately, he can't take down the turret. Will find him with the classic, and BBG find a much more convincing win than last time that these two teams met. It was a 13-11 scoreline finish. This one's a 13-8. I'd imagine the Boogermen are a little exhausted after that Renegades match, but there's still a couple more maps left to go where they can answer back.
Yeah, and I think for me, what really impressed me was BBG on the attacking side. Again, that's not their statistically stronger side. They've shown that they win more rounds on the defensive side, and while they did struggle a little bit there, we have to remember that they're playing against a really good squad in the Slimy Boogermen. So for BBG to play the attacking side as well as they did, to cause fits for an entire half up against Slimy Boogermen was really impressive. And again, it wasn't some spectacular performance where somebody popped off and they lit up the scoreboard. It wasn't Bjor who was lighting things up. It wasn't Rob Wiz who had the same performance that he had earlier in the day. It was more of a complete effort. So if you're a fan of BBG, given how close that first series earlier today was, to get that win in the fashion that they did is a huge blow of confidence, or a huge vote of confidence. And furthermore, Shinobi is doing a watch party, and he was watching BBG earlier, and one of the things he specifically called out was Bjor, and one of the things he mentioned was Bjor's the kind of player that when he gets confident, when he gets hot, there's no stopping the guy. So really, for the entire squad, that level of confidence, to get that map win, to kind of put that last loss behind them is huge.
Well, we're going to have to see if the Boogermen can bounce back. It is... you're not sitting pretty in this series, but last time these two teams met in the open qualifier, it was the same exact story. The Boogermen were down in the series, and they managed to swing things back. Unfortunately, no bind, but we will be heading over to Split next. Split last time was 13-9 in favor of the Boogermen. We'll have to see if they can make that same impact after a short break. We'll be right back after this.